Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Demings. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And ma'am, when you mentioned the word procurement in this particular field, I imagine you could spend weeks in committee meetings on that, and we'll be looking forward to your input on how we best handle procurement. I want to mention one other thing before I get to my specific question. We've got people effectively doing the same job from different agencies. And my question gets back to compensation and employee benefits and managing a workforce that comes through different agencies. If you've got tremendous discrepancies in pay, that can lead to problems in the management of your team. Is that an issue that you have been able to address, or is that something that you're going to need legislative help with?
Sir, we actually have received legislative help on this in a bill passed a few years ago.
Okay.
We are working to create what we call the cyber talent management system. We have been able to leverage some existing authorities, direct hire authority, retention incentives to reward those who have achieved certain certifications in difficult to retain positions, those types of things that have really reduced our attrition rate. The cyber talent management system, I really believe once we get this in place, it will really just be a complete revolution in how you think about public service and civil service, and we're really excited to get that on board. And I'm working with the Suzette Kent, the federal CIO, to think about how do we ensure that all civilian agencies have the ability to recruit and retain quality talent, and so that's also a big initiative. You'll see some of that in the National Cyber Strategy as well, thinking about that workforce of the future.
It's certainly an area where the private sector, they can make significantly more money, and they are truly public servants in doing the work that they are. My question gets specifically to the National Guard. I know the Army Guard and the Air Guard have established cyber units to support U.S. Cyber Command. In what cases can these units support their home states under state authority or other states on a state-to-state basis? And General, that may be best for you. How do you expect? Okay, that's fine. Perfect. Thank you.
So as recently as the elections, we had a number of circumstances where State National Guard were supporting the state elections process with their cyber expertise and skills. As I noted in my statement, we are looking at the orientation and structuring of National Guard support to the civil side of the equation, and that would be with federal assistance in terms of a mission force capability. But I think, as you know, the National Guard, we go with the total force construct in the Department of Defense, which means that you want to have maximum flexibility to utilize all of your force structure to hit your priorities. And if you're segmenting significant chunks of it for particular missions, for particular supported elements, you might lose that. So we're balancing in the assessment what the gain loss is associated with dedicating certain elements of the Guard to cyber domestic missions versus having them in reserve for military missions. So that's a work in progress.
All I would say just on the end is this is really where the come together with DHS, because we have to have that whole of government approach before we throw too many National Guard members. DHS may be having support teams in there, so that's going to be part of the calculus in covering down on all of our bets to a cyber incident. So those are some of the conversations. Last part, we're learning a lot as it goes forward with, just in one scenario, Mr. Rapuano had to sign a waiver to a policy to allow National Guardmen to get TSSCI information when, because they were in Guard status, they were limited to secret. So once again, we're learning a lot as we go through.
It's certainly a different type of mission, but I think that as time goes on, we're going to need to pull on the Guard just for the manpower that it's going to take to handle this mission. But thank you for what you do, and ma'am, I yield the 15 seconds.
Mr. Larson.
Thank you. I want to
Thanks for coming out. I want to build on what Mr. Scott said. Mr. Rapuano, so in your testimony, you say that you're responsible for leading this with the DHS. So, are you the leader on this, looking at 1653? Are we calling you when there's a question?
Well, we work with the Joint